benefit fraud, my friends, is dwarfed by the phenomenon of tax evasion. There have been 14 prime ministers in my lifetime to date. Harold Macmillan, Alec Douglas-Hume, Harold Wilson, Ted Heath, James Callaghan, Margaret Thatcher, John Major, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak. I say with no pride at all, because like all of you, I care passionately about the state of our polity and of our country, that the last three mentioned have despoiled the office more than any that I can recall. And that, I think, is truly sad. As far as Alexander Boris de Pfeffel is concerned, without any competition, he has been the most shameful and corrupt of our prime ministers. An embarrassment to the office of the premiership and to many people who regarded themselves as good, loyal and decent Conservatives. Liz Truss, I'm afraid, is living proof of the argument that one ought to know thyself. And with the very greatest of courtesy to Liz, it should have been blindingly obvious to her that although she was able to serve as a member of a government, manifestly she did not possess the range of equipment required to be an effective Prime Minister. It was obvious to me, it was doubtless obvious to you. Sadly, it wasn't obvious to her. And I say, not in a spirit of ad hominem abuse, but because I think it reflects the reality that she was literally and disastrously for each and every one of us, the most incompetent holder of the office in the history of the UK premiership. And that might conceivably explain why she survived only 49 days in office. And as far as Rishi Sunak is concerned, let me just say this. I found him perfectly courteous when he was a junior minister responsible for local government. He had good interpersonal skills. He was well regarded in the House. He was effectively briefed for question time sessions and so on. And I've no personal resentment of him at all. I simply think that he qualifies for the description the most out-of-touch Prime Minister that we've had. And having started well, and I think he did start well, with the Windsor framework and trying to salvage from the wreckage of Johnsonian ineptitude some semblance of an arrangement appertaining to Northern Ireland that would make commercial and political sense, he has regressed. Truly, the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Richmond, Yorkshire, has shrunk into office. And I think that's reflected in the terrible ratings that he now has. So that's the first part of the context. We've had three prime ministers in one parliament showing a certain internal unease in a party and contempt, I think, for the electorate. The second part of the context is this. The government has crashed the economy in a way that has been personally painful. This is not knockabout jocularity stuff. This is personal pain for millions of people facing huge bills with energy, but in particular with their mortgages. They have, I'm sorry to say, decimated the public realm in the sense of a deterioration and shortfall in the quality of public services of a kind and on a scale that I haven't witnessed in my 61 years on this planet. And in the process, I think this disreputable troika have eroded public trust in politics. Now, public trust in politics hasn't been high for quite a long time, but public trust in politics is now really at basement levels. And I do think those three individuals bear a huge share of responsibility. So you will not be surprised to know that I would very much like to see a change of government, and I'm confident that there will be. I'm not a pollster. I'm not a psephologist. I don't have expertise. I know that the main opposition party needs a 12.7% swing in order to get a majority of one, a considerably bigger swing than was accrued, nay, fought for and garnered by Tony Blair in 1997, and bigger even than Clem Attlee won in 1945. So it is a huge mission, and it's not to be skitted or sniffed at, or the scale of the responsibility on Keir Starmer underestimated, but I think it is eminently achievable. Some of you with long memories may recall that Barbara Castle mentioned in her diaries, probably slightly cheekily because it had been a private conversation, but that's the stuff of diaries, is it not? That Jim Callaghan, who was no friend of hers, or she of him, had said to her in the run-up to the 1979 election, "Barbara, we're going to lose." And she said, "Oh, that's not the fighting Jim I know, Prime Minister." And he said, "No, of course I'll do my best. Of course I will." He said, "But once in a generation there's a sea change in British politics, and you can fight as hard as you can, but there's nothing you can do to resist it. We are at such a moment, and the Conservatives are going to win." My view, my sense, my hunch, my instinct, my antennae tell me that we're in that position now. I think people are so utterly disgusted by, sick of, and lacking any sort of empathy with this government that they are going to turn out in significant numbers and there will be a change. Now, it's not my responsibility here to regurgitate Labour's commitments. There will have to be a manifesto. It will be carefully costed. It may be quite limited in scope. But let me politely say this to you. Keir Starmer and his team have already made it clear that they propose economic stability, which above all means not going in for reckless bribes in the form of unfunded tax cuts, which would have to be reversed within months and possibly within weeks of taking office. They're not going to do that, and I think they're quite right not to do so. They have a limited commitment to try to bolster the National Health Service in terms of the number of operations that can be undertaken. They want to secure our borders and to have specialist investigators and transnational cooperation against the criminal gangs to try to ensure that our asylum system is restored to some semblance of credibility and fairness. They want to have cheap energy. They need a fight against antisocial behaviour to be part of their core script, and it is. And I think very importantly, not without controversy, you can't do anything without controversy, the Labour Party is saying, we are so short of specialist teachers in our classrooms. And I speak with some feeling on this matter, having with my wife had 3 children who've gone through the state education system, that we are going to recruit several thousand more specialist teachers, and we will finance it by withdrawing the charitable status of independent schools, which frankly is an historical anomaly anyway. I didn't go to public school or to a fee-paying school myself. I don't begrudge people who did, but the notion that they are in any meaningful sense charities is transparently absurd. So I know Keir will stick to his guns if there is invective directed at him on that front, and that is the thrust of what they're saying. Now, it is limited, but it will be funded and it will be credible. And on the basis of my own experience of politics over 40 years, I think I can safely say that it is better, particularly when the level of cynicism and contempt for politicians is what it is, to under-promise and over-deliver than to over-promise and under-deliver. Now, I met, when I was campaigning the other night for Marcia de Cordova, who's the Labour MP, a very resourceful and extraordinarily capable candidate seeking re-election in Battersea, someone who said to me, well, I wish the Labour prospectus were bolder. And I said, well, first of all, wait for the manifesto. And secondly, the key thing is to say what we mean and mean what we say and know it can be delivered. Extravagant auctions of promises, subsequently resiled from or betrayed, collectively contribute to that erosion of trust which I have myself just described and lamented. So I think it is better to be a little bit modest, a little bit understated and deliver than to promise too much and upset people. And, you know, I used to think that charisma was very important. Frankly, I don't think charisma is that important. I think that Keir Starmer is a very decent, honest, upright, capable guy with a good brain and sound values. And he is the main alternative, with no disrespect to people who have other party allegiances, to this government. Charisma? My hat. Ladies and gentlemen, I think people are sick to the back teeth of people who might be thought to be charismatic, public school game players who think it's all a great fun sport. What people, in my judgment, crave is a period of solidity, of stability, of understated competence in the running of the country. And for my money, for what it's worth, and on the strength of my experience of seeing him in action, that is what a Starmer Labour government would provide. So that's my position, but I completely respect it if you take another. More widely, there are other objectives in politics than the limited list of pledges which I briefly circumnavigated a few moments ago. And I don't know about you, but as somebody who's been quite fortunate in the course of his career, and who's not a rich man, but is not totally impoverished, what bothers me in our country is that given that it is relatively rich and a large-scale economy, it is the most coruscating indictment of 14 years of Conservative government that as we meet here today, 4.3 million children are growing up in poverty. And when I checked the stats before coming here, they showed that in the year to April 2024, 3,121,404 people were dependent upon food banks. Congratulations, and I mean this with all sincerity and respect, to the Trussell Trust for the pioneering work that it does, and gratitude also to everybody who, from his or her of their limited available time and energy, decides to assist in a food bank. But it is frankly a scandal that we have that coexisting with people using every conceivable device they can to minimize the tax that they pay. And I would just say, so far as waste and fraud is concerned, we hear a lot about benefit fraud, don't we? Well, of course it's wrong. It is an abuse of the system. It takes from people who should have the resources by people who shouldn't, and it should be chased down and exposed and the money collected. But, and there is a but, benefit fraud, my friends, is dwarfed by the phenomenon of tax evasion. And short of tax evasion, clever tax avoidance schemes designed to shortchange the revenue. And so what I would say is let's have a great public debate about the need to put in the foreground of public policy the fight against poverty and equity in our moral judgments as between people who abuse the benefit system and those who defraud the revenue, because I think that the latter, those who defraud the revenue, are operating on a vastly greater and more egregious scale than the people who are abusing the benefit system. There is one issue that I haven't mentioned thus far, but I feel I must. Michael Heseltine said the other day that he thought this was a dishonest election. I hope I haven't misrecalled what he said, but I think he did, because the big issue in his mind, the elephant in the room, the subject of Brexit, was not to the fore. Well, Michael will use his language, I'm going to use mine. I won't say that it's a dishonest election. I completely understand why those parties that were opposed to Brexit, having grappled with the interstices of the system and the minutiae of the legislation and the process of deal-making and seen the result, want to try to bed it down and not to return to the fray at once. I understand that. You can't have referenda over and over and over again within a short time frame. So I respect Keir Starmer's position on the matter, and indeed, for that matter, the Liberal Democrats, who have been avowedly the most trailblazing pro-Europeans, not wanting it to be part of their pitch to the voters that we would go back into the European Union or into the single market or into the customs union. My point is a small, modest one, and it is this. We cannot escape the reality of geography or the fact of interdependence.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below. Or visit iai.tv for more debates and talks from the world's leading thinkers on today's biggest ideas.